If you're over 60 and you still masturbate, you need to hear this because what I'm about to share with you may feel uncomfortable at first, but it could save your energy, your sleep, your erections, and even your long-term heart health. I've spent over 30 years treating older men across the country. Some come to me with questions they've been too ashamed to ask their entire lives, and one of the most common is this: "Doctor, is masturbating too much hurting me?" My name is Dr. James, and I'm a men's health physician specializing in vitality, hormones, and circulation for men over 60. In my decades of work, I've seen the truth buried under layers of shame, silence, and outdated myths. And today, I want to speak to you plainly, with science, with compassion, and with no judgment. Because here's the paradox: masturbation can actually boost testosterone, improve prostate health, and strengthen erections. But for men in their 60s, 70s, and beyond, it can also do the exact opposite, if done too often, too compulsively, or in the wrong way. In this video, I'm going to reveal 7 masturbation truths that most doctors won't tell you, from the loss of dopamine and zinc to the surprising effects on your sleep, your muscles, and your emotional health. And at the end, I'll share a powerful strategy to protect your energy and rebuild your drive, starting today. So stay with me. You deserve to know the truth. Before we dive in, if you haven't subscribed yet, I encourage you to do that now. And tap the bell so you never miss another honest, science-backed health talk made specifically for men over 60. If this topic resonates with you, type 1 in the comments. If it doesn't, type 0. I'm here to improve and bring you the content that truly supports your health. All right, let's get into it. Starting with the first truth every man over 60 needs to hear: masturbation is normal. But after a certain age, your body plays by different rules. Truth number 1: masturbation is normal, but age changes the rules. When I was in my 30s, I used to tell patients masturbation is completely normal, don't overthink it. And I still believe that. It's a natural expression of intimacy with yourself, a way to release built-up tension, clear your mind, and in many cases support your emotional and physical well-being. But over the years, I started noticing something strange. Men in their 60s, 70s, even 80s were coming to me with a different story. They'd say things like, "I used to feel great afterward, energized, clear-headed, but now I just feel tired." Sometimes even foggy or irritable. Others would admit they needed more and more stimulation to feel the same pleasure, or that their desire for real intimacy had faded. That's when I realized something that no one had ever clearly explained to them. Masturbation is still normal in older age, but the rules of how it affects your body, they change. And if you don't adapt, it can slowly wear you down without you even knowing it. You see, after 60, your hormone profile is different. Testosterone, your main sex hormone, isn't firing at the same level. Your blood vessels aren't as elastic, your nervous system is a bit slower to respond, and your recovery time increases not just after a workout, but after sex, and yes, even after masturbation. That doesn't mean you need to stop, not at all. But it does mean that how often you do it, when you do it, and why you do it starts to matter more than it ever did before. One man I treated, a 67-year-old widower, confided in me that he had started masturbating daily out of boredom. It wasn't about pleasure anymore, he said. It had just become a habit, part of his evening routine like brushing his teeth. And while it helped him fall asleep at first, over time, he began to feel more exhausted during the day. He couldn't concentrate, and his motivation to get outside, socialize, or even exercise plummeted. That was a turning point for both of us. I walked him through what I'm telling you now. Masturbation in older age needs to be more intentional. Your body has a different recovery rhythm. Your brain processes dopamine and arousal cues differently, and your emotional need for connection becomes deeper, more subtle. When masturbation becomes mechanical, something you do just to escape, it can actually leave you feeling more alone than when you started. But here's the part that matters. When you approach it with care, when you listen to your body, honor your energy, and choose moments that feel grounded rather than compulsive, it can still be a healthy, even powerful part of your life. The key is awareness. Doing what worked at 30 while living in a 70-year-old body is a recipe for depletion. So if you've noticed that it doesn't feel the same anymore, you're not broken. You're just evolving. And your habits need to evolve with you. There's no shame in that. In fact, it's a sign of wisdom. But now comes the part most men have no idea about, something that's silently affecting their brain chemistry every time they climax, especially if they do it often. And it's not just about age, it's about the invisible chemical that fuels your drive, your mood, and even your zest for life. Most men are losing it, and they don't even realize it. Let's talk about truth number 2 and why dopamine, the pleasure chemical, could be the missing link in your low energy, lack of motivation, or sudden disinterest in intimacy. This one might surprise you. Truth number 2, excessive masturbation can deplete dopamine, your drive and motivation hormone. I want to tell you a story about a patient named Charles. He was 72, retired, widowed for nearly 5 years, and living alone. He came into my office one afternoon not for a medical emergency, but because, in his words, something just doesn't feel right anymore. He couldn't explain it. He said his body was working, more or less, no major health scares. His blood work wasn't alarming, but he felt off, low, dull. He wasn't sleeping well, he had no motivation to get up and move, and things that used to bring him joy, a walk outside, cooking, even a favorite jazz record, just didn't feel the same. As we dug deeper, I asked him about his daily habits. That's when he told me. He'd been masturbating nearly every day, sometimes twice a day, not because he felt particularly aroused, but because it had become a habit. It helped him fall asleep. It distracted him from loneliness. And with so much time alone, it was just easy. But the more he did it, the less pleasure he got from it. He was chasing something, but never feeling fulfilled. And that's when I brought up dopamine. Dopamine is the brain's reward chemical. It's what gives you that hit of motivation, that excitement for life, that spark that says, yes, I want to do this. It's released when you achieve something, experience pleasure, or even anticipate joy. But here's the thing, every time you climax, you release a surge of dopamine. And in younger years, your brain resets quickly. The system recharges. But after 60, that reset slows down. When masturbation becomes too frequent, especially if you're watching high-stimulation content, your brain starts to dull its sensitivity to dopamine. The same way someone might need more sugar or more caffeine to feel the same rush, your brain needs more stimulation to get the same hit. And that's where the problem begins. Because now regular life, the quiet joys, the small wins, start to feel flat. You stop looking forward to things. You lose your drive to engage. It's not that you're lazy or depressed, your brain is simply burned out from chasing a chemical high over and over without time to recover. Charles looked at me and said, "So, I've been draining my motivation and didn't even know it?" And I told him, "Not your fault, no one talks about this, but yes, that's exactly what's happening." And when we adjusted his routine, scaling back frequency, changing the time of day, and replacing some of the habit with light movement and breathing practices, his spark started coming back. Within 2 weeks, he said he felt clearer, more focused. He even started cooking again. This isn't about shame, it's about chemistry. Masturbation isn't the enemy, but doing it without understanding how your brain works at this stage of life can leave you emotionally and mentally drained, even if your body feels fine. If you've been feeling numb, tired, unmotivated, it might not be just age. It might be dopamine depletion, and how your solo habits are affecting your reward system without you realizing it. But what if I told you there's another layer most men overlook? Not in the brain, but in the body, a silent shift that happens in your muscles when you masturbate too often, especially in the wrong position. And over time, it could be quietly weakening the very part of you that controls your erections and your bladder. That's where we're headed next in truth number 3, and it's something every man over 60 needs to know. Truth number 3, it can weaken your pelvic floor if you're not moving properly. A few years ago, I had a patient named Harold. He was 68, retired early from construction, and had always been active, a man who prided himself on being strong, mobile, and independent. But when he came to see me, he was frustrated. He was experiencing occasional urine leakage when he sneezed or laughed, and his erections were getting weaker. He said, "Doc, I still feel the desire, but my body isn't responding like it used to." Naturally, we ran the usual tests. His testosterone was slightly low, but not alarming. His prostate looked normal, and there were no signs of serious vascular issues. But when I asked about his habits, his daily routine, activity level, and yes, his solo activity, we found a clue. He told me he was masturbating almost every evening, sitting hunched over in his recliner, usually for long periods of time, sometimes using a tablet, sometimes just by memory. It had become part of how he unwound. Nothing extreme, but very sedentary. And that's when something clicked. You see, many men don't realize how critical the pelvic floor muscles are. Not just for erections, but for bladder control, orgasm strength, and overall core stability. These muscles act like a hammock at the base of your body, holding everything in place. When you're younger and more active, those muscles get natural engagement through walking, lifting, and even spontaneous movement. But after 60, especially if you're sitting a lot, and particularly during masturbation, those muscles start to weaken. When Harold sat for long periods in a curved, relaxed posture, hips locked, core disengaged, he wasn't just taking pressure off his back. He was slowly training his pelvic floor to turn off. Over time, that leads to less blood flow, weaker nerve response, and yes, trouble getting or maintaining a firm erection. It's not that masturbation was the problem. It was the position, the stillness, the lack of activation, the repetition. Think of it like this: if you did a bicep curl with no weight, no engagement, just going through the motion every day while slouched over, would that build strength? No. In fact, it might cause imbalance and weakness. The same is true down there. When we adjusted Harold's routine, adding simple pelvic floor activation exercises like Kegels, short walks after sessions, and occasional standing or stretching instead of long reclined postures, things began to change. Within a month, he noticed firmer erections, the leakage reduced, and most importantly, he felt more control. It gave him back a sense of power over his body, something he hadn't felt in years. The takeaway here is simple. Movement matters. Your posture matters. Especially in your 60s and beyond, you're either training your body towards strength or allowing it to slowly weaken. And the way you masturbate, how often, how you sit, how long you stay still, it all sends signals to the body. The key isn't to stop, but to do it with more awareness. And while muscles and movement are crucial, there's another hidden cost to excessive masturbation that goes deeper than posture. It has to do with something every man needs to feel masculine, focused, and energized. A trace mineral that silently drains each time you climax. And if you're not replacing it, your energy, your immunity, and even your testosterone could be taking a hit. Let's talk about that next in truth number 4, and I think it's going to surprise you. Truth number 4, more isn't better. Frequent ejaculation can drain zinc and energy. Years ago, I had a patient named Tom. He was 70, a retired high school football coach, tough, disciplined, and sharp as a tack. But when he sat down in my office, he looked worn out. Not physically ill, just empty. He said, "Doc, I sleep okay, I eat clean, I walk every day, but I still wake up tired. I'm foggy all morning, and the strange thing is, I just don't feel like myself anymore." We started digging. His blood pressure was controlled, heart was steady, his testosterone was low normal, not alarming for his age. But when I asked him about ejaculation and how often he was masturbating, he paused, then admitted with some embarrassment, "Usually every night, sometimes twice. It helps me relax. Always has." I told him, "There's no judgment here, Tom, but at your age, how your body recovers from that release matters more than ever." You see, every time you ejaculate, your body loses small but significant amounts of key nutrients, especially zinc. Now, that may not seem like a big deal at first. After all, you're not bleeding or breaking bones, but zinc is one of the most critical minerals for men. It plays a direct role in testosterone production, immune function, wound healing, and even sperm quality. In younger men, zinc stores are easier to replenish. Their gut absorption is more efficient, their hormones more responsive. But after 60, your ability to absorb and retain zinc starts to decline. And if you're ejaculating frequently, even just once a day, without replacing that loss, you can slowly run into a deficiency. This is when men start experiencing things like chronic fatigue, weakened immunity, loss of taste or smell, even reduced libido. And the confusing part? Most doctors don't catch it because it doesn't show up as one clear disease. It's more like your entire system is operating at 75% and you just learn to live with it. For Tom, we ran a simple zinc test. He was borderline deficient. I recommended a high-quality zinc supplement, added more zinc-rich foods to his diet like pumpkin seeds, lentils, and beef, and most importantly, I asked him to take a break, reduce his ejaculation frequency to 2-3 times a week, and give his body time to rebuild. Within 3 weeks, his energy improved, his mind was clearer, and something else happened that he didn't expect. He said, "Doc, the desire feels stronger now, like it used to. It's not automatic anymore. It feels alive again." That's the power of rhythm. When you allow your body to recharge, when you respect the nutrients and energy it takes to produce healthy semen, to maintain hormone balance, to feel truly vital, everything starts to work better. This doesn't mean you have to stop masturbating. It just means you need to understand that more isn't always better, especially when the act is costing you minerals your body struggles to replace. But there's another aspect of all this that's just as important: your sleep. So many older men use masturbation as a way to fall asleep, thinking it relaxes them. And while that can be true, there's a hidden downside most men never notice. Depending on how and when you do it, masturbation could actually be disturbing your sleep cycles and leaving you more exhausted in the long run. Let's talk about that next in truth number 5 and how you can protect your rest without sacrificing your pleasure. Truth number 5. It can affect your sleep, positively or negatively. Not long ago, I had a patient named Glenn. He was 73 and had been struggling with restless nights. He said, "I fall asleep fine, but I wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning staring at the ceiling, and the next day I'm running on fumes." Like many older men, he assumed it was just age, maybe stress, or part of getting older. But then in a quiet moment, he told me something else. "I usually masturbate before bed. It helps me wind down, or at least it used to." Now I've heard this hundreds of times, and Glenn wasn't wrong. For many men, masturbation does bring on a wave of relaxation. That's because orgasm releases a cascade of calming chemicals: prolactin, oxytocin, and serotonin. These help your body shift into rest mode, especially if done with the lights low, no distractions, no stimulation beyond simple touch. But here's where it gets tricky. What most men don't realize is that masturbation can also spike cortisol, the stress hormone, particularly if it's done too late at night or with heavy visual stimulation. Watching screens before bed, especially graphic or fast-moving content, stimulates the brain, not calms it. It activates the sympathetic nervous system, making it harder for your body to enter true deep sleep. And if you're in your 60s or 70s, where melatonin levels are already reduced, this overstimulation can be even more disruptive. I asked Glenn to try a little experiment. For 1 week, I told him to avoid all screens an hour before bed. If he wanted to masturbate, he could, but with no phone, no tablet, no videos. Just quiet, lights dim with a focus on breath and body. The change was subtle at first, but by day 5, he told me something that stopped me. I didn't realize how wired I was before. Now I fall asleep easier and I stay asleep longer. I feel more at peace. It wasn't about the masturbation itself, it was about the how and the when. You see, your body is a delicate system of rhythms, and sleep is one of its most important cycles, especially in older age, when recovery is everything. If you overstimulate your brain before bed, even if it feels relaxing in the moment, you can disrupt that rhythm without even noticing. You may fall asleep fast, but you won't stay there. You'll wake up groggy, irritable, or with brain fog that lingers all day. And for men over 60, where energy is already a limited resource, poor sleep can start a chain reaction. Higher blood pressure, weaker immunity, more emotional volatility, and even lowered testosterone, all from what felt like a harmless bedtime habit. So, should you stop masturbating at night? Not necessarily, but I do encourage you to change your environment. Dim the lights, turn off the screens, slow your breath, and give your brain the space to truly wind down. It's not just about release, it's about restoration. But even as we talk about sleep, there's another side to this conversation, one that brings us back to the very core of why many older men masturbate in the first place. It's not just about habit or sleep. Sometimes it's about loneliness, about reaching for something in the quiet moments. And when it becomes too frequent, it may not only drain your energy, it might also be affecting the very thing you hope to preserve. Let's look at that deeper truth next, in truth number 6, and why masturbation, even if it's healthy in moderation, can temporarily impact your sperm quality and long-term reproductive vitality. Truth number 6. It doesn't cause infertility, but it does affect sperm quality temporarily. I remember a conversation I had with a man named Peter. He was 65, recently remarried to a woman in her early 40s, and they were hoping, maybe just one last time, to try for a child together. He came to me full of hope, but also full of questions. He said, "Doc, I've heard too many things about masturbation ruining your chances. I've been doing it regularly for decades. Did I blow my shot? No pun intended?" It was a sincere question. And honestly, it's one I've heard many times. There's a myth out there, one that's been around forever, that masturbation causes infertility, that the body runs out of sperm, that somehow the act itself damages your reproductive health. I looked Peter in the eyes and told him the truth. No, masturbation does not cause infertility. Your body produces millions of sperm every day, even well into your 60s and 70s. That part of the machine still runs, but, and this is important, frequent ejaculation can lower the quality of your sperm temporarily. You see, when you ejaculate multiple times in a short span, whether through sex or masturbation, your body doesn't have time to fully replenish the healthiest, most motile sperm cells. Instead of a strong, full count, you may release a lower volume with lower motility, meaning fewer sperm are swimming and fewer are capable of reaching their target. It doesn't mean you're infertile. It means your timing matters. So I told Peter something simple. If you're serious about conceiving, give your body 2 to 3 days between ejaculations. Let the tank fill back up, so to speak. Because when you allow that cycle to complete, your sperm count and concentration can actually improve, even at an older age. But there's more to it than just biology. There's also the emotional weight. When a man ties his identity to fertility, especially later in life, it becomes more than just a physical issue. It becomes a question of legacy, of masculinity, of purpose. And when you're not seeing results, it's easy to blame yourself or your past habits or your age. But what I want men to know, and I told Peter this too, is that your body is constantly rebuilding. It's never too late to improve function, especially when you understand how the system works. Peter took the advice. He cut back, focused on nutrition, added a bit of zinc and selenium. Truth number 7. It can become a coping mechanism instead of real connection. I'll never forget the day Harold came back to my clinic, eyes brimming with a mixture of relief and vulnerability. He was the same 68-year-old retiree I had helped months before with his pelvic floor concerns, but this time it was different. He admitted that since his wife passed, loneliness had crept in like a quiet fog. Masturbation had become less about pleasure and more about filling an emptiness he couldn't otherwise escape. What started as a harmless nightly habit had turned into his go-to for comfort, almost like a blanket he wrapped himself in anytime the silence felt too loud. When he told me how he found himself reaching for it even after a brief call from his daughter or a half hour of television, I knew he was on a dangerous path. He felt momentary relief but then sank back into isolation. His sense of worth began to erode, And he confessed that real intimacy with another person or even within himself seemed to slip further away with each compulsive session. The act that once gave him a spark of joy was now a band-aid on a wound that only genuine human connection could heal. That was when I shared a simple truth with him. Masturbation in moderation can be part of a healthy life, but when it becomes your sole emotional refuge, it risks replacing real relationships with a shadow substitute. It's like trying to quench your thirst with salt water. You'll still feel parched. Over time, the brain starts to associate physical release with emotional avoidance, reinforcing a loop that's hard to break. You crave the temporary escape, even though it ultimately deepens your sense of loneliness. I asked Harold about the things he used to love: visiting his grandson's Little League games, playing jazz piano on Sunday mornings, the way his late wife's laughter filled the house. He realized he had traded those moments for solitary sessions that never fulfilled the need for connection. Together, we set a simple goal. For every time he felt the urge to escape, he would first pick up the phone, send a message to a friend, or step outside for a brief walk. He wasn't giving up masturbation entirely. He was learning to balance it with real interactions that reminded him he was still part of a larger story. Within weeks, I saw Harold's energy return. He laughed more easily during appointments. His sleep improved, not just because of better hormonal balance, but because his mind felt less burdened by secrecy and shame. Most importantly, he started volunteering at the local community center again, rediscovering a sense of purpose that no amount of quick relief could ever replace. The lesson here is that after 60, emotional health and human connection become as crucial as any physical routine. Masturbation isn't inherently wrong, but if it becomes a substitute for relationships, it can hollow you out from the inside. You deserve real laughter, shared stories, a hand to hold, not just a momentary release that leaves you longing for more. If any part of Harold's story feels familiar, know that this pattern can be changed. It starts with awareness. Noticing when you're seeking comfort in isolation rather than reaching out for true companionship. It's about restoring balance between self-care and social engagement, between private release and shared experience. Yet while rebuilding connections can heal your spirit, there's one final element men often overlook, something that bridges the gap between healthy habit and unhealthy dependency. In the next section, I'm going to share a simple 3-step recovery ritual you can use after any solo session. One that resets your hormones, refocuses your mind, and protects that all-important spark of connection so you never feel compelled to choose escape over intimacy again. You won't want to miss it. 8. Conclusion. As we reach the end of this journey through the 7 truths, I want you to take a moment and recognize how far you've come. We began by acknowledging that masturbation remains a natural part of life, but that after 60, your body and the rules it follows demand a more mindful approach. We saw how chasing quick pleasure can deplete the very chemicals that fuel your motivation, how posture and movement shape the strength of your pelvic floor, and why too much release without proper recovery can drain your stores of zinc and energy. We explored the delicate dance between sexual release and sleep quality, and how timing and environment can either support or disrupt your rest. We cleared up the old myth of infertility, learning to respect the rhythm of sperm production, and we confronted the deeper emotional currents that can turn solitary habits into unwelcome coping mechanisms. Each of these truths carries a common thread: awareness. Understanding what happens in your body and mind as you age isn't about shame or restriction. It's about honoring your life experience, your hard-earned wisdom, and the physical changes that come with time. You've earned the right to live vibrantly, with confidence and energy at any age. By embracing these insights, you can transform a routine act into a tool for renewal, balancing pleasure with purpose, release with restoration, and solitude with genuine connection. I share these lessons not as a distant authority, but as someone who has walked alongside countless men facing the same questions and uncertainties you might feel today. I've seen the relief on their faces when they realize they're not broken, merely evolving, and that small shifts in habit can yield profound gains in health, mood, and intimacy. Now it's your turn. Take what resonates, experiment with the adjustments we've discussed, and notice how your body responds. Talk openly with a trusted partner, a friend, or your physician, and remember that real strength comes from knowing yourself and caring for yourself with intention. Thank you for allowing me to guide you through these truths. If you found value here, please share your reflections in the comments below. Your story could be the spark that helps another man embrace his own path to vitality.